But welcome back to the Carb-Appropriate podcast. Today I'm speaking with my good buddy, Rachel Grunwell. Now, you're pretty stoked that I called you a wellness crusader, but that's how I see you.
I love the term. It's cool.
I think that puts you in good stead with people like, people you know, actually, Pete Evans, Grant Schofield, my good buddy, Scott Gooding. I think I've all labeled them that at some point.
Oh, yeah, they're great people. They're amazing. Huge respect for all of those names. And I think I've interviewed most of them. Yeah.
I'm sure you have. And I mean, that's obviously how I met you. Quite a few years ago now, you were kind enough to come out and interview me. And I think I took you by surprise doing some weird mind-body stuff where you thought maybe we're going to do some exercise.
I was doing the Weekly Herald column on trying all these health and wellness and fitness ideas, yeah. And I think I remember at the time thinking, what don't you do, Cliff? Like, yeah, you're amazing.
Well, it's nutrition and mind-body medicine. So I guess, that might seem pretty disparate to people, but it is really those areas that I focus on.
Yeah.
And since then, obviously,
background though, and, sort of achieving in this field as well as your research and, yeah.
Well, still struggling along. So, and obviously since then, we've chatted many times about all sorts of things, and it's been interesting from the outside looking in, because I could be wrong here, but it looks like you've been through a really interesting transition from journalist into sort of health journalist, blogger, and now I guess into practitioner, educator to some degree.
Yeah, I really believe in the power of transformation, and mine has been quite crazy. I was a hard-nosed journalist and investigative journalist for 20 odd years, and I used to hold politicians to account, people in power to account, and I used to be able to make amazing change through policies and, standing up for the little guys, as a writer. So that was my history, and it was by pure accident that I fell into this industry. I was on maternity leave, had my third son, and was just asked if I essentially wanted to be a guinea pig writing about wellness and health and fitness. And back then, there was a lot of writing work about nutrition in magazines and newspapers, but there wasn't really anything on fitness. So I was kind of like this weird thing. And I ended up loving the industry, falling in love with it, and, met amazing people like yourself who genuinely help people and help people transform and live a healthier life they love, I guess. And I was transfixed. Wanted to be part of it.
Is that what got you into all the things you do now? I mean, you run, you do CrossFit, you're a yoga instructor.
Yeah.
Did that set you on that path, or were you already doing those things?
7 years ago, I was an unfit mum, and I struggled to push my then toddler in a pram around the block. I was red-faced. I would huff and puff. I really thought people, the Lady Gaga song Born This Way? I used to think anyone who was radically fit was actually born different, wired different. They were different to me. I couldn't be that person. I genuinely thought that. And I started on a path, and I realized that all you have to do is show up and just keep showing up, and you can get fitter. So from unfit mum to multi-marathon, I've run 24 marathons now, CrossFitter, and trained in the industry. I'm a PT level 5, qualified yoga teacher, teach mindfulness and meditation, and big on restorative yoga, rebalancing the body and mind. And I've worked with quite a few athletes over the years, like elite runners to weekend warriors and CrossFitters and dancers and mums and just everyday Kiwis who just want to stretch.
So important. I was talking with the guys at Jiu-Jitsu this morning we were actually talking about mental health.
Yeah.
Because, you might think these wrestlers are all sort of big macho guys, which they are, but they also have a sensitive side. And we were talking about mental health because we all struggle with it. And they were giving really poignant tips about how to improve mental health. And it all comes down to just starting by putting one foot in front of the other, and people don't think they can do that, though. That's why that brought this to mind, because you say, that song "Born This Way." People think, well, I'm born this way. I'm depressed, or I'm bipolar, or I'm whatever, or I'm unfit. But when we think about anything that we ever achieve, we achieve it by doing exactly what you said. We start within our capabilities, and then we build on that slowly. And I think that could probably be said about physical health, physical performance, mental health and wellness, and even probably, our spiritual side to health as well. That's something we start and we build on and grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So important. I mean, movement, it rewires your brain. It just is a foundation of your wellness, and it's so important. But what I love about you, Cliff, is that you also love about all the pieces of the puzzle that make us well. There's movement, there's the nutrition mastery, there's the mindset mastery. There's so many pieces of the puzzle, and whatever you fall down on is something you can choose to uplift in at any moment. It's so powerful. Yeah. Actually, I've got a happiness researcher in my book, Balance. He's Sean Acor. He's one of the top happiness researchers in the world. He's amazing. And he talks about,
possibly the top.
Yeah. I did do air guitar down my hallway when he said be involved in my book. Obviously, he couldn't see it at the time.
It's massive. You had some great names in there. I was going to bring up Sean because he's someone I really respect.
Oh, me too. Look, he's extraordinary. And I asked him for my book, what he does in a day to stay healthy and happy. And they're all really relatable tips. But I love too that he explains that our happiness isn't only linked to genes. Like there's a big portion that we have within our control to work on. And by the way, he has been depressed in his past. Can you imagine that? He has all the best tools at his at his fingertips. So I love that. It shows we're all vulnerable. We can all fall down with that at any moment.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would expect that. I think a lot of the people who are able to translate that research into application, they've been there to some degree as well. You wouldn't necessarily have the depth of understanding, I don't think, unless you've actually been there yourself. And as you say, a lot of these things that can be applied are actually relatively simple. And it comes down to training yourself to create the power of habit.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you go to see a doctor, they'll prescribe movement, and it's such a simple concept, but it's so hard to do. And like you said, just putting one foot in front of the other. I've interviewed Mark Manson in the past, and he just said, like, it's so hard to get your mind around just that, like just starting. Starting's the hard thing.
I wonder, and I've discussed this with Mickey Willardin, with Chris Miller, the primal movement expert, and with Scott Gooding. The idea that I think we're starting with the idea that we need to be doing the best practice guideline or what people recommend as being optimal. So, people think, oh, well, I want to get fitter, so I'm going to start running by, going out and doing a 20 or 30 minute run tomorrow because I know I've got to do 30 minutes 3 times a week kind of thing. But if you've never moved before or not since you're a kid, that's going to destroy you.
Yeah.
So I think one way that people can begin to start by taking that first step is make it so ridiculously easy that there's no reason why they wouldn't go on and do. I know this sounds stupid, but I get people to start by going for a 1 minute run.
Wow. Yeah, that's cool.
1 minute run, and they're like, you're crazy, right? No, do 1 minute. The next day do 2, and then do 3, 4, whatever. Yeah. And it's so easy that people can actually create the power of habit before they realize they're actually doing anything.
Yeah, with clients, I help people to set them up for success. And I'll say, like, I'm working with this amazing woman at the moment, and I said, for you to be successful, I just want you to move your body 30 minutes twice a week, go out for a walk. So at the end of that week, if she does that, she's 100% successful. But anything she does up and above that is just a bonus. And I'm educating her how it changes how she thinks and feels, and how it'll inspire her kids to move as well. Like, she needs to be the role model, and she needs to propel the change that she wants to see in her kids. And just setting yourself up for success with those simple ideas. And by the way, I just saw her this morning, and we had just a 4-day gap in between catching up, and she has moved 3 out of 4 days, and it's self-driven. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, I often get clients to, I sort of say, well, how many days are you prepared to exercise? Mm. And they always go for what they think they should be doing, not what they'll actually achieve. They say, well, 6 days a week. And I say, is that legit? Because if it is, great. But if it's not, let's do something realistic.
To begin with, that would have destroyed my soul.
Yeah.
I do it now, but then and I love it. Thrive on it, but yeah.
Exactly. Created the power of habit. And, when people are realistic about that and they say, well, I can absolutely 100% get in, even if it's twice a week, I'd much rather someone does the 2 sessions a week, and then anything they do extra to that, they feel like they're one step ahead. They feel like they're not just achieving, they're going above and beyond, because they are.
Yeah. And it's how I'll just never forget that start journey and how hard it was. 7 years ago, I ran for 30 minutes twice a week, and it was so hard. It was horrendous. I looked horrific, looked the color of a fire engine. I didn't enjoy it. It was really hard, but I just kept showing up. And a few weeks down the track, I noticed I was running more than I was walking, and then I would be able to run a little bit longer. And then I got to my first 10K. Never imagined in a million years I'd be able to run a marathon. And all it was showing up to training, getting stronger, fitter, and I did it. And now I help coach people through marathons, and it's the most joyful thing. And I help a lot of disabled athletes actually achieve their marathon dream, and that's a real heart thing.
Yeah. Well, and you also help a lot of practitioners and, health influencers and things like that get their message out to more people as well. You've always been extremely giving of your time to promote, people like myself and, other influencers like Mickey and Darren Ellis and, Scott Gooding and all these other people.
They're amazing, amazing people. Yeah.
Was that part of your inspiration for the new book? Because it must have been quite a journey. It's a pretty amazing book.
Yeah, so I got a book deal 2 years ago, and I had been writing. I was an award-winning journalist with 20 years behind me, but just it's only been in the last 8 years, I think, that I've been in that sort of wellness and fitness and health niche. And it's when I started that column at the Herald on Sunday and writing about the industry that I fell in love with it, wanted to train and work in it. And I love propelling people forwards. Like, I dig what people do, and I want to put them out into the world. And when I came to the book idea, I didn't want to just write about me or my health journey or what I specialize in. I wanted to put together this book of amazing change makers and trailblazers and people who helped change my life, experts not only from throughout New Zealand, but from throughout the world, and, neuroscientists, psychologists, nutritionists like yourself. You were at the top of the list, Cliff. There's a happiness researcher in there, doctors who specialize on anxiety, depression. But it's a really uplifting book. It's about sharing all these toolkits, and you can tap into whatever you like. Emotional intelligence, if you want to uplift that, on how to relate better to your kids and your colleagues and your friends, just read that chapter. So I tell everyone, you only have to, see, it looks like pretty easy to pick up for men and women, actually. It's nice, and, it's not blazing pink, candy floss pink. So I tell people they don't actually have to read the whole book. Just read a chapter that you're interested in and want to uplift and yeah. So putting this book out into the world, I really feel like it's actually truly of service. Like even if they read your chapter, Cliff, and it decodes their nutrition, decodes nutrition for them and helps them move forward. I mean, there is magic in that.
Yeah, and I really think that, you know, like we said before, those small impactful things that people can begin to do each and every day, they're massive in and of themselves. You know, they create enormous benefits, but then they also lead to just a life better lived. You know, I often talk about this idea of Linchpin actions. You know, for some people, it's getting up and making their bed. If they get up and make their bed, everything else flows better. For me, it's having a protein shake in the morning because I know if I do that, I'm going to feel better and it's going to help me to eat better later in the day. For some people, it's flossing their teeth.
For me at the moment, it's CrossFit. I'm quite addictive. I can't believe I've actually become addicted to this discipline. A year and a half ago, I could barely lift anything, and now I can deadlift 95 kg. Like I'm just this school yogi, and so it's quite neat to have seen that progression and to feel stronger and fitter than I've ever felt in my life. And like I'm in my 40s and I've got abs for the first time in my 40s. Like it's kind of a bit weird and wonderful, but not from chasing the aesthetic. I love the gymnastics. I love the weightlifting. I'm learning every day. It's play for me. So 6:30 in the morning, that's how I start my day. And man, that wires me in this extraordinary way. It's so cool.
And you started CrossFit as a bit of an experiment, right? You went originally for your column, is that right?
I went to power my running. I'd run all these marathons, and I was thinking back to when was I my strongest as a runner, and it was when I was doing more strength work. So I joined CrossFit Newmarket. It's this raw bat cave. It's just full of like raw iron and stuff, and great people there. And yeah, my idea was just to go twice a week just to get stronger. So I had more power in my stride. I could get up the hills better. But I ended up loving like the play element. CrossFit's underpinned by 10 disciplines, and you know, you got aerobic, anaerobic, flexibility, agility, powerlifting, and yeah, heaps of fun stuff to kind of learn. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I when I first came across CrossFit, it was a long time ago. It was back sort of mid 2000s, I guess, about 2005 maybe. And at the time, a lot of strength and conditioning people were pretty derisive about CrossFit. You know, just saying this is stupid, just people getting injured and all this kind of stuff. None of which is true, of course, but people were pretty derisive about it. I was living in Canada at the time, and they asked me to go out and coach some weightlifting at a local CrossFit affiliate, which was one of the first CrossFit affiliates outside of the States. And I was blown away because a lot of the times that I was working with top athletes or other strength and conditioning coaches, they'd sort of say things like, well, how long will it take me to learn how to do a clean properly? It's like, well, don't really know. I mean, it's down to you and how much you put in. You probably never learn to do it perfectly anyway. It's a constant learning process. Yeah. Anyway, I went to CrossFit, and their whole mindset was just around learning skills.
Yeah, functional movement, right? Like the squats, just picking something off the ground. The press is just the movement or action of getting a suitcase down from above. And like I'm impressed by CrossFitters. They can actually move really well. And runners, they've got zero flexibility, and that leaves them prone to injury. So
and now your sort of CrossFit journey is meshed with your yoga practice as well.
Yeah. So I'm this weird mix of CrossFitter, endurance runner, restorative yogi, meditation chick. And normally all those worlds like never collide, and CrossFitters kind of looked at me sideways when I walked in, the CrossFit gym, this, yogi. And, my yogi mates look at me and think, oh, it's weird, lifting those heavy weights and stuff. But actually, it's a beautiful blend. And for a couple of years now, I've taught at CrossFit New Zealand yoga class at Darren Ellis's place. And actually, he's got this huge respect for recovery work. And so we blend really well. And so some of his CrossFitters access it, sorry. I get mums come, I get, dancers come along, chiropractors, anyone who wants to dip in. And it's this great space to move in and be part of.
Yeah, and I think there is that intersection now. I think at NewsEst we called it Lifestyles of Health and Sustainability. It was this idea called LOHAS, right? LOHAS. And it was really interesting because our biggest markets when we first released were yoga and CrossFit. And we found that there was a massive intersection between those. And we were all into both probably in some way. I wasn't necessarily CrossFit, but I was, weightlifting and wrestling and also doing yoga and have done, yoga for 35 years now. So, there is that intersection now where I think people are really interested in the movement of the body and all the holistic stuff around it, which really helps us to not just survive, but to move into thriving.
Yeah, there's that mind-body connection stuff that goes on, and like this body awareness, like where your limbs are in space, obviously with proprioception, which yoga can really help with. But, it's great for focus and de-stressing. Like I deal a lot with busy corporates who just need to calm their down, basically. And I run these, huge wellness events with a brand, and we have 100 women, in the room, and some of them will be crying during the meditation time. Like they've just taken this time for stillness and self-care. Yeah. It's extraordinary how everyone really needs that in their life at the moment. And I guess that's why it's good timing for my book. Everyone's kind of searching for balance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the release that comes from breathwork, of which yoga is also a type of breathwork, it's movement and trained with breath, that can be enormously releasing physically, but also, you can't unlock that from the emotional either. So, I remember when I was doing yoga a lot, there would often be people would just start to, to release, whether that be laugh or cry or fart, whatever it happened to be, and that's okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, diaphragmatic breathing calms your nervous system in a matter of moments. It is the most powerful tool you can use if you're stressed. And even kids are using it, that and mindfulness, such beautiful tools that, busy corporates really need in their life. But also kids who are really anxious and just need a tool to tap into.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I talked about with Scott a lot was because he I don't know if I've discussed this with you before, but he does, so many things really well. He cooks beautifully, he eats well, he trains, he does so much. But he said on his podcast, he had me on his podcast, that he had always struggled to get into meditation. And so I outlined that idea for him. We'll start with a minute tomorrow. And he developed the habit. But now I think sometimes people need things stripped back so much initially. I've also been working with corporates on the 7-second out breath. So all they do is try and breathe out for 7 seconds. And basically they just keep doing that until they can breathe out for 7 seconds. It might only take them a couple of breaths to do it. But in that time, and I think there's research backing this, stress levels just crash. If you can breathe out for 7 seconds, it shows that you've basically relaxed your sympathetic nervous system.
Yeah, it lowers your blood pressure, your heart rate, it calms your nervous system down. It's something that's prescribed by psychologists and like medical professionals. I've got friends who are physios who do that practice in between seeing the next client. And actually, I love your advice around meditation. You know what? The first time I ever did it, I felt quite overwhelmed. I was really fidgety. I seriously was the worst fidget in the room. And when I walked away from that yoga studio, The person prescribed 30 minutes a day, and I didn't do it. I didn't ever do it because I was so overwhelmed. I thought, I don't have 30 minutes in my day, and I just got anxious even thinking about it. Fast forward 7 years, and I teach yoga and mindfulness and meditation and run these really big events and run retreats as well for a company. And yeah, I share a really similar idea to you. And it's just, start with 1 minute, and that can be magic, absolute magic. You don't need to do this stuff for 30 minutes.
So within the new book, I mean, there's obviously lots of tips that you've sort of garnered from that. What were some of the biggest learnings that you took from it? Or was there a biggest learning, an epiphanical moment that you had when you were writing that book or getting these tips from all these amazing people?
Man, I've just transformed in so many different ways, like, unfit mum to multi-marathoner, couldn't lift to deadlifting 90 kg, couldn't focus on meditation to teaching meditation. I really worked hard on myself, and because I had this huge awareness that, like, I had no mind-body connection. I was, it's funny, when people turn up to my yoga classes, I always say to them, are you getting a tax audit? Because you kind of look like you're about to get a tax audit. You're like, smile at me, like, I'm not that scary. And I kind of think that was me. I couldn't move well. I had zero body awareness. So look, there are 30 global experts in balance. I've interviewed thousands of people over the years. I've really met some truly amazing people over the years. But when I came to writing balance, I wanted experts from different parts of the wellness puzzle. So, nutrition to emotional intelligence to, Kerry Spackman, who's a neuroscientist who helps the All Blacks perform at their best, and our top rowers and Formula One racing car drivers. But you know what? The tools he shares with those people who are super successful are tools we can all use. And I've learned something from every single expert in that book, including you, Cliff. They've all changed my life. There's a doctor in there who talks about the 5 layers of listening. And my God, I realized in the past, I actually never really listened to anyone well. That was such an awakening. I continue this journey to be a better person, to learn more, to connect even more with people. So it's a journey that keeps continuing. So it's really hard to pick a favorite. Every one of those experts in there is a thought leader and an absolute change maker, and they're all brilliant.
Yeah. Well, was there any piece of advice that surprised you or sort of changed your perspective a lot? Anything that shocked you?
Yeah, so much. I think you really lose track of the insights you get along the way. But, I think, the top happiness researcher, like, we're in an era where anxiety and depression is snowballing out of control. Yeah. So, his wisdom is needed more than probably anything else. And, what he shares, what he does on a daily basis to keep well is really, really magical. And I love his vulnerability and sharing that he once got depressed, and, he shares that, you can come out of that, you can emerge from that. And I think that was really powerful for me, that there's this empathy and this understanding to a very deep level. And this work is just probably needed more than any other work right now.
It's so important, and it's so action based, so it's people can feel empowered. I think one of the challenges we have is that we externalize all that stuff and we think, well, I have, or I am, I am depressed, or I have depression, I have this thing. and I'm going to go to the doctor and they're going to help me by giving me a pill, which is going to rebalance my neurotransmitters. Whether that's even the case or not, because the evidence is far from clear about whether antidepressants actually work, but there's not any empowerment in there, whether or not, and I'm certainly not deriding medications, because as you know, I've been through my own health challenges and medications have saved my life, but we need to look outside of that and be truly holistic about it, but also have those very simple and clear action steps that we can start, because then we're empowered in the process and we're actually doing something about it.
Yeah, I think, the book helps you understand that movement is a prescription for wellness, and food that you fuel your body with affects how you think and how you feel. Physical exercise propels creativity and your energy levels, but mindset ultimately, actually, that's one thing I've probably learned on this journey, is that you have the power to be whoever you choose at any moment, and the only person holding you back is yourself. And I see that so clearly now. I almost didn't finish my book, by the way. Despite being an award-winning journalist, I had this absolute crisis of confidence halfway through. I had a lot of shit going on in my life, and I almost walked away. I thought, who am I to be writing this book? I'm not a brilliant writer yet. Despite my history as a writer, I've been a writer for a lifetime. Yeah, absolute crisis of confidence. And I walked away from it for months. And then I just picked myself up off the ground. And one thing I'm good at is being quite bloody minded. And I just thought, oh my God, I've got a book deal. I've got the dream ready there. Like, this is something I dreamed of. Like, I can't just stop. So I methodically went through, ticked off, next step. Okay, approach that person in Boston, interview that person in New York. Sometimes did that in my pajamas, by the way. Weird hours interviewing people on the other side of the world. I just had this huge, list to tick off and get through. And I just became bloody minded about it. And I thought, you know what? If this book gets panned, who bloody cares? At least I would have done my best to fulfill that dream. And, I feel so happy now that the book is not only finished and out into the world, but that the publishers have done the most beautiful job. It looks and feels beautiful, but it's also full of, amazing people. Yeah. They're exciting. They're so exciting. And the amount of times I get messages actually from people who have read my book and tell me which expert they love, and they tell me, and I went and bought their book, and I'm like, wow, awesome. That is so cool. So yeah, I feel really happy that I've, brought together this great tribe. I'm kind of like a girl guide, if you like. I was a really crap girl guide as a teenager. I was really naughty, but gave them grief. But I'm a really good guide and guiding, exceptional people together. And yeah, when people pick up my book, they're getting access to a lot of magic there. And my book will propel all the people involved forwards too, because there's some Kiwis discovering their incredible talent.
Is that why my book sales are spiking now?
You're just brilliant anyway, Cliff. You're amazing. You're extraordinary. One book almost broke me. I don't know how you keep writing more.
It's a constant learning process, though. And I think, you said a couple of really interesting things there. And I'd love to hear your perspective on how you got through that writing process. But I will say, before we get into that, when I look at other authors and people who have done work that I consider to be really good, it really drives me to want to be better, because there are things that we all do so well and things we maybe don't do quite as well, or maybe we feel we've got to improve on. Mm-hmm. And, one thing I really appreciated about your book, and I also thought this about the book that Grant and Karen put together, What the Fat, and Scotty's books that he's done in the past, they look beautiful. Mm. And I don't think that's not necessarily my medium, right? I'm just all about the words.
Mm.
And so I really appreciate when people have the content there, but they've also got that aesthetic that's really compelling to people. So I think you've done a really good job with that. It's a really nice book to look at, and I think that goes a long way.
Yeah, I know, and I'm so grateful to the publisher. It's hilarious because I work, with this background I have as an investigative journalist and working for newspapers and magazines over the years. We kind of live and die in that industry by taglines on the front cover, like all these headlines that scream out, buy this newspaper because you want to read the story. And actually,
Yeah.
I interviewed Sarah Wilson. She's the I Quit Sugar queen.
Yeah, I know Sarah.
Yeah, extraordinary woman. And she's in my book, actually, talking sustainability hacks. I could have had her in there, on nutrition, but I thought, actually, no, the magic she is bringing to the world at the moment is changing how we think about, loving the planet more. So just lost my train of thought there. I get chatting.
It was the aesthetic and the publisher.
Yeah. So she had just put out Simplicious Flow, and so I was interviewing her. We had a coffee in a cafe, and we just really flowed, got on really well. She's amazing. She's like one of my heroes. It was a really neat moment for me. And she said she was putting all these taglines on the cover, and she's got this crazy cover, and it's got all these taglines that scream out, or headlines, if you like. And when the designer showed me balance for the first time, I kind of went, wow. Because I said, wow, I've just met with Sarah Wilson, and she's sort of saying that we should, maybe put on the cover all these headlines and buy me headlines. And she said, yeah, thanks for offering that, Rach, but we're going to do the opposite. And I went, yes, I love you. Yeah, cool. Honestly, you're the expert in this field. All I care about is having a beautiful book, and I just completely and utterly trust you. Like, I'm a writing geek. That's my superpower. I can string words together and make words relatable. And that is my superpower. But design work, I'm shit. So I'm going to go, that's over to you. And you know what? I absolutely love the cover of my book now. I have men tell me, thank you for writing a book that I can pick up, because it's ducky blue. It's not screaming candy floss pink. So there are some authors out there who only want women to pick up their book. And like, I coach men yoga. I love working with men, and so that was quite important to me. I actually ran a retreat recently in Rotorua, and there was one man who turned up, a lawyer, so delightful. And like, day one, he apologized for being in the room, and he said, I'll try and tap into my inner estrogen. Poor guy. And I was like, no, I'm so happy you're here.
Well, that's funny, because I mean, one thing I would say about the cover of your book, and I think you've done a great job, and your designers have done a great job there, is I don't think it would be a book about balance if it was full of like clickbaity headlines on the cover, right? That seems strange to me. But it's interesting that I've thought about this a lot lately. We see yoga as being this very feminine thing, but it never was historically. It was pretty gender neutral, really. And most of the people who introduced it in the very early days to the West were guys. They were gurus coming out of India. And that's how I was introduced to it. My dad was doing it for flexibility when he was a runner. So, I was about 3 years old. He was there doing yoga, so I would just join in. And we had books. Yeah, we had books by like Richard Hiddleman and, the early books by Iyengar and all the, early guys who sort of introduced it to the West. And I never saw it as a masculine or feminine thing. That never occurred to me until I started going out and doing classes and realized that, oh, wow, this has sort of been co-opted by the pastel brigade.
It's funny, like, I get a lot of CrossFitters who come to my classes and they're kind of a bit terrified to come along. they're like, I can't touch my toes. And I'm like, you know, could you lift 100 kg on the day you walked in? Like, why do you expect to be able to touch your toes on day one? Like, I couldn't run a marathon on the first time I tried to run.
Exactly.
Like, we kind of, you know, it's got to be perfect, or we kind of abandon stuff. Like, if you have that progression or growth mindset, that's everything. And actually another thing too is that I love is a lot of people, they don't want to do that meditation side of things, and then they love Shavasana, and they're like, Rach, your Shavasana's not long enough.
Well, that's a funny thing. You know, you mentioned it with yoga. I hear that a lot with meditation. A lot of my clients, because I'll sort of, you know, recommend meditation to them, and I'll give them guidelines of how to do it and whatnot. And you know what most of them say? Oh, I can't do that. I can't I can't sit still for half an hour. I can't still my mind, or I can't think of nothing for 20 minutes. And I'm like, that's not the point. The point is to actually sit in stillness, and your mind's going to wander. You know, your mind is a thought creating machine. For most people, it's going to be absolutely impossible to stop it. And if you stop it, you're probably dead. So what's the point? But that is the point in itself, is to sit there and become aware of the things that arise and fall. You know, if someone comes to me and they can sit in meditation and be completely calm and still for 6 hours straight, they don't need to be meditating. They need to go and learn some other skill, because they've already probably got that one down, right?
And yoga, it's Sthira and Sukham, so it's the worlds of effort and ease. So you need a bit of both, right? You need, you know, that adrenaline pumping and getting stronger and, you know, leaping out of bed and getting shit done. But you also need to be able to calm your farm. So it's finding that right balance. And it's a prescription that's different for everyone. Sometimes people don't have enough theta in their life.
Well, and when I was a kid, I was always taught by both, you know, the books I was reading and my old man and other. We did a little bit of yoga at school, which was kind of probably weird for the very early 80s. But
probably with what you're wearing probably at the time when you look back.
But we were always taught that there is no perfect form. There's no perfect asana. You might you might aspire to that, but what you're doing is what you're doing. Like the doing is the key, right? So it's never about, that's why I always thought competitive yoga was weird to me. That was strange. You know, when people are doing yoga competitions?
Yeah, that's weird. It takes, you know, I teach yin yoga, which is restorative yoga. And it's the most beautiful style because no one in the room looks the same. It's because like our skeletons are different. We're different and we can't look the same in a pose. And, you know, there are some poses, like take for instance, like an eagle yoga pose. I can access that with ease because my hips, like the way I was born basically. But, you know, one of the most skilled yoga teachers in this country will never access that pose because of how his hips are. But he can do every fancy trick in the book. It's like, it's our genetics. And nor should we, like, strive for that perfection in a pose. It's kind of bullshit, actually. It's all about, like, where you feel the stretch, that's where you're feeling the magic. Like, as long as you're in a safe position and you're not compromising, say, your knees or, you know, that kind of thing, you can look different in a pose. And, you know, depending on where you hold tightness in the body is, you know, where you're going to feel the stretch intensely as well. So we're all different, hey?
Yeah. So given that yoga is such a focal point for you now, is that sort of one of the things that's critical to your health and balance on a day-to-day basis? You do yoga every day?
Yeah, and the way I teach is I educate and I empower people. Like, my mission is that my students don't actually need me. I teach people all the time, like, what areas of the body you're stretching, how to rebalance your body and mind, and, you know, what they're doing. Like, I really want to empower people. And that's what I use every day. When you run long distances, like I'm going to be training a disabled athlete for the New York Marathon soon, and how I stay in one piece is because I stop, I tune in, I listen to my body. Where does a niggle need ironing out? Where do I need to balance, stretch, and rollering, using trigger point? I use it all. Like, recovery is key to carrying on. And as a CrossFitter, I need that even more. Yeah, so a couple of minutes a day. You don't need to glued in for an hour yoga. It's great. And I run a workshop, and I say to people, look, just turn up for a workshop series for 10 weeks. It's 1 hour once a week. Come and learn some very cool stuff, and you'll have it with you forever. It'll help you. And that's cool to share.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and again, that comes down to the achievable, right? I think a lot of people think, what's the point of going once a week? But that's 52 sessions in a year. It's you could do a lot with 52 sessions.
Yeah, even if you do it for the de-stress and breath work. Wow. I have a lot of chiropractors who come and see me to do that, essentially. I'll work with athletes, and they'll come for the asana, the physical practice, but they end up loving the mind stuff and body breath work and meditation side even more. Your mind and stuff. But yeah, I love it. I love sharing it. And actually the greatest kick I get out of it is I'll share, like I ran a retreat at the Polynesian Spa just a couple of weeks ago. And actually it's really common that a lot of people don't want to come along because they're terrified of the yoga class, just one yoga class in the weekend.
Yeah.
Because they say, I'm not good, I'm not flexible, I can't do that, can I just skip it? And they bravely show up. And, one woman shared after the last retreat, I was so scared to do it, didn't want to do it, but oh my God, I loved it so much. I want to do it again. And wow, that made my day. Yeah, cool.
It's such a funny thing we have where we go to the gym, or we go to a yoga class, or we go, and do some class, and we want to be good at it immediately. We don't want to look foolish, or we don't want to look silly, all of which is bullshit anyway. Very few people actually care what you look like in a yoga class.
Yeah, you've got to be brave to show up and try these things. And
absolutely.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, being brave enough to show up.
Yeah, and that's true for anyone. That's not true just for a beginner. I sort of had a crisis of conscience the last few weeks. I've been feeling a bit down, have relapsed a little bit with my bipolar stuff. And I messaged one of the guys at jiu-jitsu and said, look, dude, I haven't been able to get in because I just don't feel like I can. I don't feel like I can get up in the morning, and I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 10 years. I'm not a beginner, but I still didn't want to go back after having a few weeks off, feeling like I had to start again, or all this rubbish that goes through your mind of, I'm not going to be any good anymore, and all it took was a word from a mate to say, hey, it's cool. We all feel like that, and he's a high level brown belt. So he's just, a step under black belt. He's a, very experienced practitioner. And he basically said, look, we all feel like that sometimes. So, no matter how experienced we are, I think we can still just get off the wagon enough to feel like we're not going to be able to do it. And that's where our fears and our ego really rise up.
Yeah. And thanks so much for sharing that. It's really powerful to hear that, because we're all human. We all fall down on our knees sometimes. And, it's easy to forget that. I don't know about you, but I get a lot of people who say to me, you're a businesswoman, you run a business, you seem to be doing this, that, and the other. You're kind of like Superwoman, and I kind of hate that too, because, we're all trying our best, but, I can't live up to that cave creature. And how you're feeling is how I feel sometimes. And some days are tough. But the magic and that is, you had this community to tap into to help lift you up again. And,
Exactly.
it's called the group effect. So like if you're
Yeah.
going out working out on your own, it doesn't help you as much as if you're connecting with a group that cares about you, because there's that social connection as well, which really helps. And yeah, I can't, recommend daily rituals. It's what I call daily rituals enough. And, jiu-jitsu is a ritual that helps keep you well and happy and healthy. And like my CrossFit's a bit of a ritual for me at the moment. And whatever, it doesn't matter if it even changes, but just have rituals in your life that, help
Yeah.
strengthen you. So important.
I agree 100%. And I know that it's interesting now because there's a bit of a swing back against the morning routine. A lot of people saying, "Oh, I don't do a morning routine. Morning routines are stupid." And, there's sort of backlash against people like Tim Ferriss and whatnot.
Like there's nowhere else I need to be. I can't be washing my hair at that time or get an appointment like that. And I love getting in and getting it done, but it doesn't matter when you get it done. It just matters that you take time for self-care.
No, it doesn't. And that's 100% right. And that's why I think the idea of, when people get dogmatic about a morning routine, they're kind of losing the point.
Totally.
I'm a big fan of morning routines purely because for myself, for a lot of my clients, me as well, if I don't get certain things done first thing in the morning, I'm not sure that I'll actually get them done later in the day. And so it's critical, right? That's how every morning I wake up and I have a glass of water. I have my big protein smoothie with my greens and all that kind of stuff in it, have a coffee with my partner, and then I write.
Yeah.
Every morning. It's the same routine every single day. And I'm sure it's the only reason that I've been able to put out a fair amount of content is because writing to me is the most important thing. So I do it each and every day.
Yeah, you're amazingly disciplined, but yeah, you have this ritual of how you rise. And I'm the same. Like I've got this never-ending to-do list. Like seriously, like it's like whatever deadline is screaming at me next. But I unapologetically take time for self-care. Actually, that's probably my biggest message with clients and running a lot of wellness events. Actually, I come across a lot of people who feel guilty about self-care. And I'm like, no, honey, like, healthier and happier you are, the better you can be to your loved ones. And yeah, that's a key message. Just be unapologetic about taking that time for you and getting those rituals in. And for me, like, if I start my day with a run or yoga or CrossFit, it, sends the chemicals flying in my body. I feel pumped to start my day and I just feel good. I feel different. And, my next ritual is like you, I have a coffee and I sit, I'm still, I'm mindful and I just savor the moment. Like that's my reward after working out and it's my ritual. I do it every day and I love it.
Yeah, I agree. Scheduling, not just having, an idea that you're going to do things for yourself, but actually scheduling it is so important. And I often ask clients, how often do you cancel on your doctor's appointment or, a client coming to see you? How often do you cancel that? And they're basically like, never. I never do that. How often do you cancel your own appointment or shift your appointment for someone else or whatever? And it's pretty frequently. And I think we need to give ourselves, one thing it gives us when we set those firm commitments for ourselves is that's telling us in a different way that I'm important. I'm important, my health is important. And when we prioritize that, we can be so much more effective for all those people that we can help and influence as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a parent and like I don't care if my kids run marathons or whatever, just do whatever moves you to help keep you healthy and happy. But yeah, and a client I'm talking with at the moment, that's how I kind of get through to them often. Actually, I'm just thinking of this particular one because she's seen me freshly this morning. But it's like move for you and, I want you to be well and healthy and happy, but you know what? You're modeling for your kids and inspire them. It's they need to see that as well. And it just makes you think and feel good. But yeah, it's you influence those around you. Influence is an actual real thing. And funny enough, if you're not moving enough, then, get in touch with someone who is and surround yourself with them a wee bit. And they'll inspire you to move. And yeah, they're good people to be around.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good take home, I think, for people, is that group effect. And I think, we can often feel we're reluctant to do that. I think, ego gets in the way and we don't want to appear foolish in front of other people and all that kind of stuff. But the benefit of being around people is massive. Whenever you've got something really crazy going on in your head and you tell someone about it, you realize, actually, that wasn't that big a deal. It's the same thing.
Actually, a prescription for wellness too, which is in the book, is finding flow. And like you and I do it through movement, but you can do it through music as well. You can probably see it in the background. You can see my alto sax that way.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Like I've played that since I was a kid. And,
wow.
It doesn't matter how you find flow, but it is a science-backed thing. It's, it's been immersed in the moment, immersed in the doing. You've got to have quite a high skill set in order to find flow. So you've got to be quite good at it. So like when I first started running, I was really crappy at it. I hated it. It was hard. I couldn't find flow. But once I got proficient at it, it's like moving meditation to me now. I feel so good in motion. I feel so good about running. But I can also find flow through playing the alto sax. And, like a surgeon can find it through mid-surgery, like their skill set's so high, they won't even notice there's music on in the room. They're so good at what they're doing, so immersed in the moment and the doing, and they get lost in the moment. So, yeah, however you find flow, however it may be, just do more of it.
Yeah. And how amazing as well that you've got that diversity of things that you can do as well, from music through to movement, through to writing, whatever else. I think
I'm such a creative freak, but don't ever get me to do maths, because I'm really...
That might have to be next, right?
What's that?
That might have to be next.
Oh, no, I don't want to do it. I can do enough accounting for my business to do okay, but yeah.
Oh, there we go. You're covering that one.
Yeah. I know where my strengths lie and things. But yeah, quite funny, because I love sharing that I wasn't always this fitness freak, fitness geek, if you like. I, when I was at school, I used to, skip the cross country, and I was a lead saxophonist in the Rotorua Orchestra. And I could always say, I've got a music lesson. See ya. So naughty. But yeah, I wasn't into that physical mastery at all. And I was into music mastery, and that was really good for my head. But yeah, it's so nice to have that now as an adult. And yeah, it's really wonderful to be, to have music and now, movement in my life.
I think constant learning of very diverse things is just so important for the mind as well. To continue to learn and grow, but do it in different areas. I recently, I always said, when I was young, I always wanted to play the bass guitar, right? And I thought, I'm too old. As a kid, I kind of thought I'm too old because all my friends are musical and they're already playing instruments. And then as a teenager, same thing happened again. I was like, I could start now, but I'm way too old now. All my mates are in bands, they're competing in competitions and all sorts of stuff. Yeah. Then in my 20s, I thought I'm way too old now because my friends in their band had just lost their bassist and they were doing really well up in the States and Canada. And I thought, I'm too old. Tell you what, at any point, if I had started, I'd be pretty awesome now. Right? So a couple of years ago, my sister sent me a ukulele. And so I started playing that, and I didn't really like the ukulele too much, but I actually grew to like it. And now it's just an interesting thing that I pick away on at times. And I find it really good for the brain, if nothing else.
It's fun. Actually, one of my kids played it for a while, and it was sounding so cool. Yeah, ukulele rocks. And actually,
Yeah.
musical instrument. Hey, it's just there's magic in being lost in the moment, and
Yeah.
beauty of sound. So good.
Although I did pick up the didgeridoo when I was probably in my early 20s, I think. And so I've played that. I actually played didgeridoo on stage with Like a Storm once, who are New Zealand's biggest rock band. And I also played didgeridoo for backing tracks for the Power Rangers TV series.
No way. Oh,
Yeah. So you talk about doing diverse things because it's good for the brain and good for balance and stuff. I managed, road managed Like a Storm on a tour of the US for about 6 months.
wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the power of play. Actually, there's this really cool story around like just back to that, that guilt around not taking time to learn new things or do new things. I remember interviewing fashion designer Tanya Carlson on a piece on creativity, and like she's one of New Zealand's top designers. And she was saying, when she first learned to surf, she felt really guilty, like she had to, had this endless work to-do list, obviously. But, you actually are at your most creative when you're in flow. So she talks about this time where she was out in the sea, out in West Auckland, and she just looked on the horizon at the time and she saw this palette of the most beautiful colours, and that inspired her next collection. So that was the most important work she did that day. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. I've noticed that a lot recently. Particularly finishing my PhD, I didn't realize just how much I was devoting to that in addition to all the other stuff. And then as soon as that time was freed up again, and I was able just to have a slightly shorter work day and go out for a walk and things like that, the creativity just starts again. And I think it's so critical to just have those times, like you say, in flow, but also as simple as shortening your workday a little bit. People smash themselves and they're not productive.
Yeah.
The maximum productivity time they reckon is around 37 hours a week working.
Yeah, totally.
More than that, not only do you start to become less productive per hour, but you become less productive overall because you end up being exhausted.
Yeah, absolutely. Talk about living your life on purpose quite a lot. And it's just like, where are you putting the hours in your day, and, what's the most important thing to you?
My latest one.
Oh, brilliant. Oh my God.
Great minds, eh?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Brilliant. So on trend. Your book's really needed right now. Because the way people are living is kind of crazy. Like we're kind of killing ourselves for a paycheck, but that doesn't bring you happiness. Living, a life full of purpose, will get you there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think a lot of I write about this in the new book, actually, a lot of our time outside of work. So we're doing those things in work to try and make the paycheck and all that kind of stuff. We're possibly exhausting ourselves there. And then our downtime to relax is scrolling social media, where we're seeing all these very unrealistic ideals of who people are, and beginning to become more and more depressed because we feel we can't live up to that. Which is why I think it's so important for people like you to, like you said before, people will say, oh, you must be a superwoman. You're like, I've got all these other foibles as well.
Yeah.
I think you should be proud to say, yeah, I am a superwoman, but I'm also, I have my challenges, and I'm very real about those challenges, because then people can say, okay, well, I relate to that even more.
Yeah, hence the crisis of confidence with the book. Oh my God, the thought that it almost never got out. Like, what was I thinking? But yeah, you just got to be brave and doing stuff, right?
Yeah. I in Time Rich Cash Optional, which was my second book.
Yeah, it's good.
Well, yeah, I'm always embarrassed about a book that I've released probably around 10 years ago now. I'm always embarrassed looking back on books because I feel that they're a snapshot of where I was, and I've grown since then. But on the other hand, if people got, something out of it, then I'm completely appreciative for that. But I had a really interesting talk with Grant Schofield about it, and he said, he enjoyed the book, but he said, it felt like it was just a little bit one dimensional in that it was very positive and optimistic, and he almost felt like it needed a little bit more balance there. And I've been thinking about that a lot over the last few years, and so in the latest book, I was very open about my journey to this point. Some of the things that have affected me, from drug abuse through to a life of crime and all that kind of stuff, things that I was involved in when I was younger.
Reasons why I liked you, Cliff.
But probably like yourself, it's very difficult to actually write that stuff down and then put it out, because none of us know how it's going to be received. People might just write you off at that point thinking, well, who is this person?
Yeah, look, I think it's really important to be vulnerable and to be real and raw as much as possible, because that's your relatability point, and all that, like, you're a wanker, in this world if you pretend to be anything else, and yeah, I share quite a lot with clients, and at events where I'm speaking at or whatever. I'm not the best mum. No, I'm not there doing reading duty every week. I could feel terribly guilty about that. But you know what? I do charity work. I do some stuff that really matters in my life. And yeah, actually, I'll never forget. Like, I get this a bit, actually. I give time back for a charity to help runners run marathons, and sometimes it's in New York. And in the past, I've had actually mostly women, which is quite interesting, say, "Oh, you must have an understanding husband," or "Wow, you're away from the family for a whole week." and it's like, yeah, I don't have to be a helicopter parent. My kids seeing me help someone else, there's magic in that. Like, my kids are learning what kindness looks like. Like, I don't have to be there every second of the day, managing them.
Yeah, it's a weird sort of negative spin on whataboutism. Oh, you're doing this good work, what about your kids? To me, they're not mutually exclusive. I don't think I don't have kids, so I'm not speaking from experience, but I'm speaking from the experience of having been a kid. And I used to love it when my parents went away because it gave me a chance to grow, and I would get to go out and stay with my auntie and uncle up in Helensville in the Kaipara. And I cherish those memories, because if they hadn't have taken time for themselves, they probably wouldn't have been as good a relationship as they had. And they had an amazing relationship. My mum's passed away, obviously. And that also gave me that time to be up north with my auntie and uncle and to get to know them. And, my uncle's passed away now for quite some years. And so there's opportunity in all of those things. It's all an opportunity to learn and grow when it's based in love.
Yeah. And, same with my kids. I don't need everything they need from me. Like, there is magic in connecting with their community and, like, hanging out, with friends, and reaching out to friends and saying, "Hey, I'm going away. Can you help out with Lockie with this event?" Or whatever. Like, Lockie then gets to hang out with other kids and connect with them. And like, community is so important. I don't need to be everything to my kids. I love that they're self-sufficient and they're learning to do stuff on their own. They don't need me, cotton.
Yeah.
And treat them like
that idea of community is a great note to end on, because you've pulled together a pretty amazing community of people in the book. You've done a brilliant job with that, and I think people will take a huge amount from the book in terms of applicable tips that they can start to use right now. So where can people find out more about the book, Rach?
So it's for sale in, most good bookstores, actually. So it's kind of like a ducky blue colour. Paper Plus. It's in Workcools. I'm selling it on my website, inspiredhealth.co.nz. So it's inspired with a D, inspiredhealth.co.nz. It's on beatnikshop.com, Book Depository, Amazon.co.uk, Mighty 8.
So it's basically everywhere.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Awesome.
It's so exciting. Actually, social media, a lot of people talk about this being quite a hard thing and quite a negative world. I've had the most amazing experience putting out my book and getting daily messages from people, sending me pictures of parts of the book they love, or telling me which experts they love, and whose book they're buying next, who they found through my book. But I love the pictures. People send pictures of them reading it in like Fiji and Canada.
Yeah.
It's wicked. And like through my website, my little website, I get orders from like Gore, to Canada, to Australia. Yeah, it's super exciting. Love it.
It's really cool. And, I agree with you. I think that, we can be disparaging about social media because obviously in certain contexts it can provide a negative stimulus for people, but in another, it's basically the neural network of our new expanding society, right? So exercised well, it's brilliant. I mean, how else can we connect with people on that level? We can't.
Yeah, I get to connect with some amazing like runners and CrossFitters and yogis, and it's this epic community. And yeah, I love connecting with it. I seriously enjoy it. I'm on Instagram just under my name, Rachel Grunwell, and seriously, like it's so much fun. Like I love that platform, and I love it as a connector. It's really cool.
Yeah.
But actually, by the way, it was on Breakfast TV yesterday, and I had my first bit of bullying on social media.
Really?
There were some interesting comments, probably, what do you call them? Catfish or something, I don't know. One of them was giving me a hard time saying, that chick's into keto. Like, she doesn't like carbs. And I was like, nothing in the interview was about carbs, but it's so funny. It cracked me up, actually.
Yeah, I think sage counsel from guys like Joe Rogan is just to not ever read the comments.
Yeah. I didn't respond to any. There were some other ones saying, she's got cheek fillers or something on. I was like, no, these are my natural chubby cheeks. I say that, but I just thought, no, I'm not even gonna, engage with those kind of comments. But look, 99.9% of my experience through Instagram and things has just been really positive, and I've connected with an epic community.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not saying anything that is ridiculous or, excessively controversial, or, you're not trying to get that response. And I think a lot of times without realizing it, people are actually trying to get any sort of response, whether it be positive or negative, rather than just putting out good information and come what may.
Yeah, that's true. And what's your spirit of intention? And I guess most of my spirit of intention is good. I just want to inspire people to live healthier and happier and expose them to epic people in this industry. So it's generally a positive thing. And I think, I posted myself lifting some weights yesterday. Some people would say, oh, that's so ego driven. But I'm so proud of that. And you know what? I've inspired a couple of people to start lifting. So I'm super excited about that. I think, yes, that's really cool. I'm glad I shared that.
Well, it fits in with the whole theme of balance, right? You're doing all these various things and you're just letting people into your life to see that.
Yeah. And in whatever shape or way it comes out for you. Actually, one of the experts on balance is a researcher on dance. And by the way, I've got 2 left feet. I can't dance to save myself. I did a column once with Aaron Gilmore from Dancing with the Stars, and I was worse at dancing than a certain politician you might remember. But this research explained it doesn't matter how good you are at dancing. you still get the same joy, you still get the same physical and health benefits, no matter how good you are at it. And
Yeah,
there is such a beautiful message in that. Yeah.
absolutely. Well, Rach, we'll make sure we put up all of your links in the show notes so people can check those out as well. But obviously, they can find your website and find you on Instagram. Like I say, we'll have all the links up there in the show notes. We could probably talk for several hours, but I know you're a very busy person. So thanks so much for being on the Carb-Appropriate podcast, Rachel.
Oh, absolute pleasure. And yeah, so much respect for what you do in the wellness industry. You're incredible. And look, I feel very, very grateful to be interviewed today by you. Thank you.
The pleasure's all mine, Rachel. Thanks so much.